Okay, let's dive in. Picture this. Tuesday, May 7th, 2025. Just seems like a normal night over India and Pakistan.
Not quite. Turns out the skies were anything but quiet.
Yeah, definitely not your average Tuesday. We saw this massive exchange, drones, missiles, between two countries with nuclear weapons.
And the scale was huge. We're talking reports of around 400 drones and missiles involved in total over that single night. It's alarming.
Absolutely. It's the kind of thing that makes everyone sit up and pay attention.
And it didn't just come out of the blue, did it? There was a lead up.
Right. You have
Yeah.
to go back a couple weeks to April 22nd, that awful attack in Pahalgam.
Such a beautiful area known for tourism, and then this tragedy, 25 tourists killed, and a local pony rider, too. Just devastating.
And a group called the Resistance Front, the TRF, claimed it. They've got known links to Lashkar-e-Taiba or Likiti.
So immediately after that, the finger pointing starts, which is sadly pretty standard in these situations.
India pointed straight at Pakistan, saying they backed the attackers, they drew on, past intelligence and patterns.
Yeah, the accusation of cross-border support and Pakistan's response.
A strong denial.
Yeah.
They called for a neutral investigation, which they often do.
But India seemed, let's say, skeptical. Foreign Secretary Misri brought up the whole Osama bin Laden discovery in Abbottabad.
Right, basically hinting, how could you not know? It adds that layer of deep mistrust, doesn't it?
It certainly complicates Pakistan's denials, at least in India's eyes. And that skepticism, that accusation, it directly led to India's next move.
Which was Operation Sindoor, launched on May 7th. The name itself is quite something.
It is. Sindoor, the vermilion mark. It has deep cultural and emotional resonance, especially thinking about widows. Linking it to the Pahalgam aftermath sends a powerful message domestically.
So India targeted what they called terrorist launch pads and training sites inside Pakistan and also in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, or POK.
And their initial claim was quite specific, around 100 terrorists killed, and crucially, they insisted no civilians were harmed.
Precision strikes, they called them. But that claim didn't stand unchallenged for long, did it?
No, not at all. Pakistan came back almost immediately saying, hold on, 31 civilians died because of Operation Sindoor. They labeled the Indian strikes themselves as terrorism.
And that's when the international alarm bells really started ringing loud. Calls for de-escalation from everywhere.
Understandably, you have two nuclear powers trading blows, essentially. Everyone wants them to step back from the brink.
Which brings us squarely to that night, May 7th into May 8th, when things escalated dramatically.
That's when Pakistan reportedly launched its own major response, that figure of around 400 drones and missiles.
Aimed at 15 different Indian cities. We're not just talking border posts here. Jammu, Srinagar, Pathankot, Amritsar, even as far as Bhuj in Gujarat.
And the targets weren't just military, according to the reports. Civilian centers, maybe even places of worship. That's a very serious escalation.
Targeting civilians, places of worship. That crosses a line, doesn't it? It feels like an attempt to inflict psychological damage, not just military.
It definitely raises the stakes and the potential for, miscalculation or unintended consequences getting much worse.
But India reported, well, a pretty successful defense against this wave.
Their claim rests heavily on the S-400 missile defense system, the Russian one.
Which is known to be, well, pretty advanced, right? Designed to handle exactly this kind of saturation attack.
Exactly. It's got sophisticated radar, multiple interceptor types. It's a multi-layered shield. If it worked as advertised against that many incoming threats, that's a significant demonstration of its capability.
We'll likely see military analysts poring over whatever data emerges from that night for a long time.
Absolutely. But India wasn't just playing defense.
No, they deployed offense, too. These Israeli-made Harop drones.
Ah, yes, the kamikaze drones or loitering munitions.
Right. They can apparently circle an area, find a target, and then just dive in. Self-destruct on impact.
And they reportedly used one to hit a Pakistani air defense radar. In Lahore, specifically, taking out the enemy's eyes and ears, essentially.
Standard tactic, yeah. But Pakistan has its own version of events there, too.
They do. They claim they shot down 25 of those Harops. They even put out pictures of what they said was wreckage.
Always hard to verify those claims immediately in the fog of war.
Very true. And Pakistan also alleged that Indian drone activity did cause casualties on their side. One civilian death reported in Sindh, 4 soldiers injured near Lahore.
India denied that, sticking to the surgical strikes. No civilian harm line.
It's that clash of narratives again. And then you had Pakistan's military spokesman, Lieutenant General Chaudhry, calling India's actions blatant aggression and warning of retaliation. Strong words.
Really ratcheting up the tension. Meanwhile, for people on the ground, it must have been terrifying.
Imagine. Jammu experienced blackouts, air raid sirens wailing, reports of explosions confirmed on May 8th.
And similar scenes reported elsewhere, too. Rajasthan, Punjab, Gujarat, some places apparently using blackouts deliberately to try and confuse drones.
Picture being in Jaisalmer, out in the desert, seeing flashes lighting up the night sky, the fear, the uncertainty.
It has real-world ripple effects instantly. Indigo Airlines waived flight change fees for affected cities. Airports went on high alert.
And reports of panic buying in Punjab, people rushing for supplies. It's a natural reaction to that kind of crisis.
What about in Pakistan? How did things look there?
Similar disruption. Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad airports all temporarily closed, passengers stranded.
And that U.S. consulate warning in Lahore.
Yeah, telling their staff to shelter in place because of drone explosions and possible airspace incursions. That's a pretty stark signal from the diplomatic community about the perceived danger.
It wasn't just alerts either. Actual damage reported. Drone debris hitting a roof in Karachi.
Yes, the Pakistan Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that. And social media lit up, as it does, with images. Damaged buildings, vigils being held, protests, too, reported in Multan. People were scared and angry.
Let's talk a bit more about the tech involved here. The S-400, as you said, seems key for India's defense claim.
It represents a major strategic investment for them. Designed for air sovereignty, taking down planes, missiles, drones. Its performance that night, if accurate, validates that investment.
And on Pakistan's side, their air defenses were clearly active too, given their claim of downing 25 Harops.
Right. It shows they have countermeasures. The Harop itself, that loitering munition, adds complexity. It's not just a missile. It can wait, observe.
So both sides are leveraging drone tech. India with these high-value targeting Harops, Pakistan building up its fleet, often with Chinese technology involved, reportedly.
It's a rapidly evolving field. And remember that Stimson Center report from 2024. It warned about exactly this: drones fueling an arms race, increasing the risk of miscalculation. They're relatively cheap, accessible. It lowers the threshold for conflict, maybe.
A dangerous game. And amidst all this tech talk, we can't forget the human cost. It's devastating.
Absolutely. India reported 16 civilians killed by Pakistanis shelling along the Law Sea in Poonch.
And then Pakistan's claim of 31 civilian deaths from India's initial Operation Sindoor strikes. We saw those vigils in Islamabad.
And individual stories emerge, like Rabina Begum in Uri, whose home was reportedly destroyed. It brings it down to a painfully personal level.
Or those images from Karachi, people gathered near down drone wreckage. A stark reminder of the danger landing right in civilian areas.
These are the real tragedies. The conflicting numbers just highlight how hard it is to get clear information, but the suffering is undeniable.
Politically, both governments went into, well, damage control and projection mode.
You saw India's Defense Minister Singh briefing the opposition, reinforcing the 100 terrorists eliminated narrative, Prime Minister Modi doubling down on national security.
Standard playbook in a crisis, projecting strength.
Yes, for domestic audiences and as a signal internationally.
And in Pakistan. Kind of a mixed message, wasn't it?
A bit. Defense Minister Asif warned retaliation was increasingly certain. But then Foreign Minister Dar talked about strategic restraint.
Trying to balance that domestic pressure for a strong response with the international pressure to de-escalate, and the very real risks involved.
Precisely. Public opinion, protests like those in Multan, they exert pressure. But the leadership knows how dangerous further escalation could be. It's a tightrope walk.
The world reacted quickly, as we mentioned. The U.S. stepped in.
Secretary of State Rubio calling for calm, but also specifically urging Pakistan to cut ties with militant groups. That linkage was explicit.
And former President Trump offered to mediate, though his comment about getting along with both felt a bit detached from the immediate crisis.
Mediation offers are common, but the history here is so fraught. Deep mistrust.
China's reaction was interesting, calling the strikes regrettable, urging restraint, given their relationship with Pakistan.
It's a cautious stance. They have interests in regional stability, too. We also heard about mediation efforts from Saudi Arabia and Iran, showing the wider regional concern.
In the UN Security Council debate, Pakistan objecting to naming TRF highlights the core disagreement.
Exactly. It shows the diplomatic battlefield reflects the same fundamental divisions.
But the main message from everyone internationally was, stop, de-escalate, now.
Because everyone knows the stakes. Nuclear weapons, decades of conflict over Kashmir. The Lassie already a tinderbox. Adding sophisticated drones and missiles just pours gasoline on the fire.
That analysis you mentioned from Happy Mon Jacob, the question of whether pragmatism beats pride.
That's the crux of it now, isn't it? Will the calculation of risks, the potential costs, lead to caution? Or will the need to respond or uphold national honor push things further?
It always comes back to Kashmir, doesn't it?
Fundamentally, yes, the root cause. Both nations claiming it, controlling parts of it since 1947. China holds a piece too. It's the unresolved heart of the conflict.
We've seen countless skirmishes, ceasefire violations, but this scale,
Yeah.
with these weapons, it feels different,
Yeah.
more dangerous.
The technology changes the dynamic. Things can happen faster, reach further. The potential for rapid, uncontrolled escalation is higher now, perhaps.
And that Pahalgam attack just underscores Kashmir's volatility. The presence of groups like TRF, the mistrust, the conflicting stories, it's all still there. Plus the domestic political pressures in both countries regarding Kashmir.
Absolutely. Hardline stances often play well domestically, making compromise incredibly difficult for leaders on either side.
So where are we right now, as of May 9th? The immediate aftermath.
It seems like a very fragile calm has settled in. India says they neutralized the attacks, don't plan more strikes unless provoked.
In Pakistan.
Still vowing retaliation eventually, but also talking about de-escalation. Crucially, there are reports of the military hotlines being used. Communication channels are open, which is good.
But trust is rock bottom. International pressure continues.
Yeah, the calls for dialogue are loud, but getting meaningful talks started when trust is this low.
Yeah.
It's a huge challenge.
Makes you think about those confidence-building measures the Stimson Center suggested, like drone protocols. Seems almost impossible to implement during a crisis like this.
It's incredibly difficult, but ironically, that's when they're needed most mechanisms to prevent accidental escalation or misinterpretation.
And the economic fallout is already being felt. Stock markets down in both countries. The rupee slipped.
Yes, markets hate this kind of instability. Plus, practical things, schools closed in Jammu and Kashmir, leaves canceled for border personnel.
If this dragged on, the cost, human and economic, would be immense. There were even reports about potential artillery shortages for Pakistan, suggesting a long conventional fight would be tough.
A prolonged conflict would be devastating economically for both, let alone the human cost. Resource constraints are a real factor in strategic calculations, too.
So it circles back. Rooted in Kashmir, amplified by new technology, potentially catastrophic consequences, the need for diplomacy, for mediation, for dialogue, it's never been clearer.
It's absolutely critical. The alternative is just too frightening to contemplate between two nuclear-armed states.
Leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Will cooler heads prevail this time? Can they find a path away from the brink?
That's the hope. The risks are astronomical, but the path requires difficult choices and perhaps a fundamental shift in how they approach each other.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear this India-Pakistan situation is, well, incredibly volatile and the stakes couldn't be higher.
Definitely. That night in May was a stark flashpoint, showing how modern military tech mixes dangerously with old, deep-rooted conflicts.
The human impact, the reports we discussed, they burrow home. And the calm we see now feels very precarious.
Extremely. It leaves us with that big question, really. What's the way forward for this relationship? And can the international community actually help steer it towards peace? Or are we just going to keep seeing these dangerous flare-ups?
Something to keep a very close eye on.